Annyeong, it's Mike here and back with another video for this week. And thank you to Gateron because now I get to try out their newest Gateron GT60 Pro. So it's 60% Hall effect board from Gateron that's supposed to be waterproof and coke proof. So we're gonna have to test that out to see is that true. So let's go straight into the unboxing and please make sure to like and subscribe. So starting off with the unboxing of the Gateron GT60 Pro. Thank you again Gateron for sending out the newest GT60 Pro. I know that this is supposed to be a really cool Hall effect PCB. So just for you guys' information, this is only the PCB. They didn't give me any of the switches or the case for this one at the moment, so I'm just using whatever I do have. So let's take a look inside the box of what we're getting from this PCB, just from the PCB itself. Now, as soon as we open it up, you can see here it is wrapped with the static sheet just so that you can have it protected. And of course, as we open it up, it is actually technically fully built in a way. And as you can see, it's like fully put together with the stabilizers as well. So it's going to be screw-in stabilizers for this one, not plate mounted. And then it's going to have the steel plate available with it as well. So taking a look here as well in the box, you're going to get a manual with a QR code. So it kind of gives you instructions on the game, the keyboard itself. Sorry that my camera wasn't actually focusing here, but it is a quick start guide. It is available in English and Chinese. We're going to be using the Optimum case for this. So to make it a very easy build, I'm planning to use the Optimum case for this thing because it would be so much easier. Now, of course, I'm going to have to actually change out the inside because as you can see right there, it just goes straight in, and you don't want that to happen with this frictionless case. So let's get this apart and then take a look to see. And of course, I'm going to use one of my favorite switches, the Owl Labs T-Switch, for doing this build because, yeah, actually, I really do enjoy the Owl Lab T-Switch, but I'll also give you guys a sound test with another switch I really enjoy, which is going to be the Acro Astro Link. Now, all you have to do is remove the screws, and then you're able to actually take this whole thing apart. So once we get the last screw out, we just remove the plates, we remove the inside foam because yes, normally this one has regular foam in it, but because of the frictionless case, we're going to have to take out and put it in the actual rubber silicone that's going to be helping with the frictionless case. Now, one thing to note, I was trying to see if I could actually fit that foam in there for the spacebar, just because it kind of helps with the spacebar like ticking noises, but you know what, let's put this back together and take a look. Now that we've got the last screw in, we can see that it actually fits perfectly now. So this specific PCB actually works pretty much identically with the GT60. So keep that in mind for yourselves, those that were interested, especially if you're looking at a good 60% Hall effect board. Now, quickly there you saw some little bit of editing magic, have the switches in. I'm going to be using the keycaps that I left over from my Wu-Ting that I originally had. Boom, as you can see right there, we got it done. Though the systems key, I know you guys can tell that it's not the right one. It's just I couldn't find it. So for now, that's just going to be keeping it there. Now, I noticed that these stabilizers weren't actually lubed. So let me just kind of give you guys a little bit of a closer look. So they weren't lubed. And they did have a little bit of tinging that I noticed from these. So what I'm going to do is just grab a syringe and fill these in with some lube because they aren't lubed at all. So the easiest thing to do is just grab a plier and then be able to put the syringe in there with the Krytox 205G0. So it is Krytox 205G0. I'll have the link in for the syringe in the description for you guys. It's very simple to do. Just lift it up and then put it in there. And you just have to squeeze a little bit in to get the lube inside, and that should be more than enough. So in the beginning, at first, you will hear some tinging after you've done this. Just keep that in mind that after a bit of use, give it a day. It should help a lot and really reduce that tinging sound and really make it a lot better. So let's give a sound test of this without that T-Switch. Now, we did the build of the Gateron GT60 Pro. So taking a look at it and the build quality of it, it's really cool. Right, it comes with the screw-in stabilizers. Sound-wise, it's pretty decent. The stabilizers does have a little bit of ticking, so definitely gonna have to work on that a little bit more. I think the better probably thing I should have done was probably take them out and then lube them up properly, because it does tick, even though I did add lube in with the syringe. Sound wise, it is quite on the clackier side. To be fair, the T switch is a higher pitch switch, and that's the one I'm using for the whole build. Of course, you guys heard the sound test with some couple of the other favorite switches that I had in this board. I'm loving the Optimum case with this, especially because it's just made it so much easier for me to build. This thing does work with other Wooting cases, so it is compatible with Wooting cases. So keep that in mind for yourselves if you are considering getting this board. Of course, we're gonna have to go into like the gaming footage and a little bit more of usage of this board, and then after all that, just in case I break something, we're gonna then go into the waterproof testing and the coat proof testing. So let's go right into that and take a look. So first things off, this board actually has a function shortcut that allows you to get to the website really quickly. All you have to do is press FNP. Now this is Gateron's web software for their GT60 Pro, and I'm gonna admit to you guys, I'm quite impressed with their software. This is actually really nice software. Most of the times when I've tried other ones that were available out there, I know that there was the Made 68 Pro, which theirs was decent. The Newfies ones is also actually a pretty decent web app. And of course, everyone knows the utility is amazing. This one, I was actually quite impressed with it. I think Gateron put a lot of work into their web app, and you can really tell. And it actually goes all the way down to the 0.01. Of course, if you're using Gateron switches, it's going to be much easier. This real-time travel that they're actually showing you with the graph and everything is actually incredible. I think that would be such a great feature in every other Hall Effect software out there. I think this is something that's really impressive. To be fair, that switch is supposed to be a Gateron switch. I'm not using Gateron switches, and unfortunately, that's just how the case is. But as you can see there, really impressed, right? Like it actually has very, very accurate reading of the switch travel, which is amazing. Now you do have the art, like the rubber trigger dynamic travel. You can also choose, different options of how you like to use the board. You have travel safe zone. Really impressive to see like the amount of work that has been put in. Going into advanced, you have your SOCD, your dynamic keystroke, all these different special features that Hall Effect boards have. The Gateron this GT60 Pro has available as well, and you're able to set it up really easily on this web app. They made it very simple, and actually, the thing that I kept mentioning before in other Hall Effect switches in their software is it's all about having it simple, and that's what's most important is simplicity of use. Now, as you can see here, it is going to be optimized for Gateron switches as well as an Everfree switch. So if you do get this board, it would be better to use with a Gateron switch than, of course, other switches. But it does work. It's not that it doesn't work, but it's better with the Gateron switches where you can do a little bit more of the actual optimization. Now you can actually change the main layer and FN layers, which is super great. Meaning, it's the FN's actually not originally set in the corner. It's actually like right beside the Alt key, the right Alt key, and easy to change in the main layer. Super awesome. You can even do the arrow keys where you want it to in the corner. So amazing to see them do that. Now, of course, using keyboard inspector, we're going to try to see if we can read the actual polling rate. The thing to keep in mind though is keyboard inspector isn't perfect for 8K boards yet, and it always isn't perfect. That's why I always have to try it with many things. Even though it says 4K, you see that there's the 8K on the edge, and it is getting that 8K polling rate. It's just dependent on the cable you're using and how it's going through the computer. It will make a difference, and keep that in mind for yourselves. It's not that this board is 4K, it is 8K. It's just dependent on your cable and how much information is being able to push through to the computer itself. Now, I do want to go onto the actual page to show you guys this PCB. So it is a PCB that's for 110 USD. You also can buy a case with it. The case is going to be an extra 119 USD, and you can buy keycaps as well as switches with it. I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like they're doing a pretty good deal when you combine it together with the PCB, but Gateron switches on their own are usually pretty pricey compared to other switches out there. See, it does have this amazing waterproofing system, except for the USB-C port, so keep that in mind. The Type-C port itself
cannot get wet. If it does, it may damage specifically the information that's being traveled through the cable to the computer. So that's something you have to be careful of, specifically the USB-C port itself. The gold circuits that they said they use was really, really great. Like the amount of quality of work that they put into the PCB is really impressive, because even the screws themselves, I noticed that they were not magnetic, meaning that they use a very different type of material. Now, as you can see here in Apex Legends, where I use Hall effects the most, right? Specifically, it's going to be with super gliding, and this is a specific tactic that, you know, Hall effect boards really make it easier to do super glides, because it's a very specific, like, triggers that you have to do and very frame perfect, and because of that, it's perfect for this. Now, one thing I did want to test is this truly waterproof? So let me show you guys right here. Is this board waterproof? First of all, I removed a lot of the switches just because I didn't want to ruin too many switches doing this test, of course, and of course just getting you guys an idea of, is the water actually getting inside the PCB and more. So see right here, for now it's not wet yet. This is just on a dry mode and it's working perfectly fine. Now, first of all, let's use water. So we're going to pour some water onto this PCB. Now, as you can see, it's completely working still. RGBs are going fine. There's no like short circuiting or anything. Keys are working right here. I'm using WASD, moving around, not a problem. I'm pressing enter, typing with the keys that are actually in, and those are the ones that actually got water in them. Completely fine. As you can see right there, not a problem at all. The water is fully in there. You can see that fully emerged. The reason why I had to put it in like a little bucket too, though, is so that the USB-C port wouldn't get damaged with water. But next up is 7-Up. Now, they mentioned in their like shorts and reels that this thing is waterproof, coffee proof, Coke proof. So I had to test that. Is this truly like a drink proof thing? So I used 7-Up, poured it in to see if it would still work and if it would get sticky, right? Like, because you don't want the keys to get sticky, right? And get stuck. Of course, right here, no issues, no short circuiting, everything's working completely fine. And I was quite impressed, honestly. Like, they did a really great job making a actual waterproof board, and it's gonna be like working perfectly fine, really well, even if you pour water inside, right? I'm picking up things, I'm like pressing different keys, all of it is still working without any issues. And as you can see there, no sticking, right? None of the keys have actually been stuck, and it's still working with the 7-Up. Now, the next thing I need to show you guys is gonna be Coke, because they did a whole test with Coca-Cola, right? So let me give you guys a look with the Coca-Cola as well. Now, pulling out the Coca-Cola and pouring it in, as you can see, this thing is getting submerged, right? Like, we're getting it completely submerged in the liquids that we've used. 7-Up, Coca-Cola, water. As you can see, the enter key is completely submerged, and still no issues at all. The board is completely fine, working. Like, you gotta admit, this is very impressive to see this amount of waterproofing in a keyboard. And it's like completely submerged and it's still working even when submerged. That is really good waterproofing. Means that any of you guys wants to clean your boards, easy to clean, right? Incredibly easy to clean, because you can just run down water, just keep the USB-C port protected, and then you can actually even drop like drinks, and like when you're like gaming and you have a drink and you just spill, you don't have to worry about it breaking at all. That's sometimes like the biggest worries that I have when I drop water accidentally or like spill a little bit. Sometimes I have that worry. This one, you would have no worries at all. So overall with this board, right, testing it out using the Hall effect, like the switches and setting it up for Apex, it worked really well. And this board itself is actually quite impressive. I took it out completely to see, you know, will things get stuck? What will happen? No issues at all, which is quite interesting to see. And I'm really interested in the fact that like they did this with this board and how it was done. And specifically for those that are looking for, you know, you're building a Wu-Ting and you want a Wu-Ting, but you don't want to spend that kind of money, like 250 USD, and you're looking to, you know, have your own customized case. This would definitely be something to look at. Now, let me give you like actual in-game footage. So I played a few games with this board. Well, not a few. Played quite a few games with this board just to, get an idea in game. And is the latency like good? And what is my feel of this, keyboard? And how do I feel about the actual like reaction time? Even though things say 8K and all these other things, there's always the difference between actual in-game and how it feels in your hands, specifically depending on like the type of plate you have and how the PCB is built. It could feel heavier or it could feel like really bouncy, depends on how the build was done. Now this one did feel a little bit more firm. That's something I definitely felt for myself, was that the build itself felt quite firm. And unfortunately, when it feels firm, it does mean that there is a bit of finger fatigue. Now, as you can see there, picking up items and doing all that was super easy, right? Everything, the reaction time and pickups were really good. It's a bit quick. Because it's quick, sometimes you do make mistakes on dropping items that you don't want to drop. That's something that I have issues with the Hall effect boards, is sometimes it's just a little bit too quick. But using skills right there, you saw me go up quickly and move around, works really well. I had no issues with it except for the fact that I did feel a little bit heavy, even with the all T switches, and I'm using the 50 gram. And because it feels heavy, it does provide a little bit of finger fatigue. And that's something that I'm not a big fan of. To be fair, not everyone's going to say have the same tolerance or limitations for the finger fatigue. Everyone's going to have a little bit difference with it, but as you can see, you're moving around and aiming, looking around, using skills was super easy to do. Very, very simple things to like look and click. Was actually reaction time was very, very good on this board. Sometimes you're worried that there's going to be some latency, but there was no issues. And you have to remember, this is like after I got the board all wet and stuff. So very good that having it be wet and using it didn't affect the like latency at all, or the affect the board in any way, which is a very good thing. And quite impressed with the overall usage of the board. I was quite surprised in seeing like how Gateron did their software, right, and setting up everything for Apex. Like, one thing to note, if you are trying to learn how to super glide and you want to make sure that your accuracy on it is very, very good, the best way to do it is actually go on to super glide trainer and then look at your settings and make those changes, because you can make a lot of changes pretty easily on this board. It made it very, very simple to do, and because of that, like, I really enjoyed using it, and it was super fun, right? I played quite a lot of games with this GT60, and I have to admit, the way I felt about it was I would probably use it over the 60HE. Now, that's just because the 60HE, I think, is a little bit more limited in terms of, yeah, it's still the old 1000 polling rate, which is not bad, right? You don't need 8K because 8K is past human reaction time. But the GT60 Pro is also just sounds really nice to use, and it does have a good software that makes it like very, very more useful in terms of the how accurate I can get it to be. Meaning, like, the Wu-Ting, the issue that I had with it was, it's point five, right? Like, it only goes up in increments of 0.5. This one is going all to the 0.01 realm, and you also get that testing to see, how far you can actually do like the pressing, and what kind of rhythm it is and how you press a key, and being able to see that and see the graph for it is incredibly helpful. So overall, where do I place this board compared to, say, the other Hall effect boards that I've tried? And I'm gonna be honest, like, this board is quite impressive. We're moving it out, and you can take a look to see here, right? I'm using the Optimum case, which is actually really nice for this build. If you are looking at building a GT60 Pro, I would suggest actually looking at the Optimum case. I know the Optimum case isn't one of the cheaper cases, but nowadays a lot of the 60 cases are quite expensive, and this one's actually really easy to build on, and it looks really nice. I really do appreciate the look of this case. Now, where would I place this board compared to, say, other boards out there, the GT60, compared to like the 68G, the Made 68 and such, as well as like the Mega 68, and say the what is there? Like, I had the Ueden, which is like the Battle 68. I would say that Gateron GT60 Pro is a very good board that you should take to look at to build yourself. If you're looking at building a 60 Hall effect board and you didn't want to splurge onto like a Wu-Ting and then buy a case after, which would probably at the end of the day cost you around 350 to maybe 400 USD. This is a good thing to look at. I would say that the Gateron switches are more expensive, so you can definitely look at a little bit more of the cheaper holific boards or switches, sorry, like the Owlep T switches, definitely more affordable. So you can also look at the Aqua Astrolink. You can also look at the Gion Raw HE. There's gonna be other switches out there that still work with this board that are gonna be cheaper, and then putting it together with the 110 USD and looking at 50 USD ish or less actually for switches, so 140, and then looking at a case, you'll probably end up coming out around 250 ish to about 300 USD. So in total, compared to say a Wu-Ting that you did that, you're looking at very similar prices, but you are getting a little bit more with this board, where you're probably going to get a nicer case and you're going to get a good 8K board with a good web app. So take a look at it. I'll have the links in the description for this build that I did with the case as well and the switches. But definitely, I think this is something that's worth looking at, especially for those that do eat and drink a lot on their desk.
The whole build, of course, for this one, because I'm using the Optimum case, it's going to be definitely more on the pricier side, right? Keep that in mind for yourselves. It is definitely a lot more pricier than what you can actually spend. To be fair, the $110 for just the PCB is not a super cheap option, because if you consider like the Venom 60, which is I believe around the 70 USD mark for just the PCB, it's still decent though when you consider everything, especially because if you're considering like gaming keyboards on your desk, especially if you're someone that's messy, really good at spilling stuff, always keeping water on your desk, and you have like drinks on your desk all the time, you spill, this would be a board for you, honestly. If you're someone that does get messy, wants to easily, like very easily, very, very easily clean your board with water, this is definitely the board you should take a look at, because it is waterproof, coke proof, which is really cool, and it's gonna be easy to clean because of that. So definitely take a look. I'll have the links in the description, because definitely this is for the messy person out there that has a lot of food and drinks on their desk. And of course, go check out the other videos I got, and I'll catch you guys next time.